let's do some fun in the beginning. Let's see what we have for today. Actually, we've got two questions. The first one probably is the attempt to taste our sense of humor. So the question is why the Java developers wear glasses. So the answer is obvious, because they can't see sharp. Yeah, that's obvious. Okay, so another question is like a more technical and quite interesting. However, I'm not sure that we can provide a clear answer right now. So the question is, can you elaborate on performance benchmarks of .NET 8 compared to previous versions in real-world scenarios? Interesting question. What do you think, guys?
I think that real-world scenario is different for every project, so it depends. It always depends on the size, on the amount of libraries, dependencies of the code base, of the
exactly.
dirty hacks across the code base.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually, I mean, in the vast majority of the projects, I don't think the problem. You may have the problem related to the low performance of .NET code, because quite often you will just see the following, like very simple CRUD operations, like an endpoint, HTTP endpoint that just has some dependencies. Then it makes some queries to the database and do something with the results and returns the results. So probably like vast majority of the problems might be with your connectivity to the database, to the quality, with the quality of your queries, and so on. However, yeah, there might be some subset of applications that would really require some good optimized code, and in general, it's better to write like better code than the code with smells, with some issues. So what can we say for sure, like at the moment? Yeah, so first of all, .NET 8 is not released yet, so we can't really answer about real world scenarios, because probably nobody tried it in production except maybe very early adapters. But what we can say that Microsoft is working in the following directions. So first of all, they are doing bunch of JIT Roslyn improvements. So the goal is to produce better quality of the code generated by both C# compiler and by JIT compiler. For example, in almost every preview that they post, if you go to the detailed explanations what was released, you will see that, for example, you will see some set of optimizations related to ARM64. For example, code quality for ARM64 is improved, or other scenarios like vector optimizations and so on. Also, they are working on libraries optimizations. For example, in the recent release, there is a huge set of optimizations in JSON serialization. So that means in your web applications, web APIs, you will definitely see some improvements because the serializer started working faster. And there are a few more obvious, like more explicit improvements. The first one is related to dynamic PGO. By the way, you can enable dynamic PGO even in .NET 6 or 7. And in .NET 8, dynamic PGO will be enabled by default, and Microsoft did some researches, and they showed that dynamic PGO can improve your performance. Like just by having this feature, you will get some improvements from 5% to 500%, so 5 times faster. But the reasonable expectation is 15%. So if you didn't attend our previous session, there was a quite detailed explanation about dynamic PGO in .NET 8 Preview 5 release, and you can go even deeper. You can go to this article. It's a huge article with detailed explanation how dynamic PGO works. So this will be enabled by default, but you can, once again, you can try this feature, try it out, even if you are on .NET 6 or 7 release right now. And the last one, it's not like about runtime performance, but it's about startup performance. It's IoT feature. So IoT, it's ahead of time compilation, and because when you have everything compiled up front, the startup of the application is much faster. So we're not going to do a deep dive into that. We are going probably to talk about that on one of our next sessions, but you can just take a look at the samples from AWS. So they measured, oh my God, it's my cat, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so you can take a look at this performance benchmarks from AWS regarding IoT compilation for Lambdas, and you will see that compared to the non-IoT compiled code, for example, minimal API, it's almost 1 second faster comparing to non-IoT compiled code. So it's really significant, especially in such environments like Lambda environments. So I hope this explains, at least partially, what you may expect from .NET 8 release. Right, so I think we can move on and talk about the latest updates of .NET 8 Preview 6. So Vladimir, I know you read these articles. You may highlight some important details.
One of the most important details is that Microsoft continue to invest in IoT compilation, and they continue to fix the technical debt across the runtime, across the libraries. And one of such fixes is that they introduced new JSON string enum converter, which helps to make it compatible with native IoT compilation, because previous converter was kind of internal thing. It was very limited and it was not compatible with IoT. So they introduced new one, generic, with additional features, with support, and yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of changes Microsoft need to make in order to make IoT compilation applicable for real life scenarios, not only for like Hello World console apps.
Because the fact is that they have runtime, runtime libraries and so on, but also Microsoft owns like Azure SDK, Microsoft Azure AD SDK, and a set of different libraries which is owned also by Microsoft, but by different teams, and they start to adapt their code base to be compatible with native IoT. And for some of them, it's very painful because they relied on reflection very heavily, or they even relied on Newton's or JSON, which is not compatible with IoT at all.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movement. Also, they try to convince other community libraries to support native IoT, and sometimes they have hard time and interesting discussions. And
that's true, because a lot of the code that was produced over the last 20, 25, 30 years, I don't remember, 22, right? Something like 22 years. It was like very reflection based, because it was like one of the probably crucial features of .NET, that the ability to check the type at the runtime, to dynamically to create new instances when you don't really know the exact type, all these type check-ins things, right? It's very reflection based.
Yeah, one small note is that reflection is not compatible with IoT. It's compatible, but you need to attribute your code accordingly, so native IoT compiler knows which exact types you expect in exact places. Yeah, they continue to improve core libraries with support of zip files,
like
zip file related new methods. Also, they introduced I don't remember exact version of .NET runtime where they introduced metrics related API, which was originally like copy pasted from Prometheus world with counters, Gauch, and so on. And they decided to make it part of core. I think it's a good move, because they started to rely on not only on Prometheus like metrics, but on open telemetry and a related ecosystem to open telemetry. And they started to introduce new APIs, and because people usually want to use it in their code base and try to test it, and sometimes it's not testable out of the box. So with each new release, they improve testability of their libraries because people demand this. Also, they introduced source generator because source generator is probably one like single possible solution to make parts of .NET SDK or ASP.NET Core framework compatible with native IoT.
Well, there is another attempt, right? So we'll talk about it very soon.
Yeah.
The new feature of C# language, yeah, which is interceptors. We will talk about that soon, right?
Yeah.
But for now, yeah.
If you don't know, in ASP.NET Core you can validate your options, and currently they introduced new source generator to make such validation compatible with native IoT. You need to attribute your code and create a bunch of partial classes for your options. Also, they continue to work on Logger and Logger source generator code base and its usability and performance. Also on integrated COM related source generators.
Yeah, that's okay. So probably still someone still uses COM, so they decided to pay some attention on COM compatibility. Previously, COM worked mostly because of the dynamic type, right? Now
I believe this can be used inside their Windows UI SDK or something like that, because they have active maintainer and contributor is lead developer from Windows Store application team, and they use they don't use native IoT yet. They use previous generation like .NET native or something like that. It's very old stuff, but it relies on new code right now, and they consume IoT stuff. Also, they continue to improve security area and introduce SHA-3 support.
Yeah.
It's hashing stuff might be useful for you, because previously you had to write custom wrappers across on top of native libraries like OpenSSL by yourself. And on current product, for example, we have we had to port old .NET 2 application to latest .NET, and I found such wrappers across on top of OpenSSL made by previous developers because .NET SDK didn't have such stuff at the time.
What else? Yeah, SDK.
It's not interesting.
Okay, WASM also not very. Yeah, globalization. So
about globalization and size of total binaries. Yeah, interesting moment that they introduced support for iOS platforms with native IoT, because previously it was supported only with Mona.
Yeah.
So Maui works on top of Mona, and now because native IoT allows you to compile your code, so you will not have any code generation in runtime, and it's forbidden by iOS platform. So now you can target this platform for your applications if you wish, and if you'd like to do it outside of Maui world.
Yeah, I mean, this change is like expectable, right? This is not a surprise. It makes this Maui platform more .NET friendly because now you can like use all this workload install templates, and you can publish using command line interface, which is like something that you expect, but for iOS we didn't have that.
Yeah. And also a bunch of contribution related to
that's what I mentioned, right? So it's really hard to measure how this, for example, these PRs may impact your code. So probably if you used Vector, then you will get some benefits. Or if you targeted ARM64, which you may target, especially right now, because like AWS and Azure offer some ARM64 VMs that are cheaper usually and perform very good.
I believe that we need to wait in order to see a list of performance improvements across the runtime. We need to wait for godlike article from Stefan Taub
Yeah,
called .NET
remember.
8 performance improvements, which will kill your browser because of its size.
Yeah, I
But-
remember. So when they have printed version of this article, and it has more than 120 pages or so. It's a really huge article.
Yeah,
Okay, so
enough.
ASP.NET Core.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in ASP.NET Core, they pay a lot of attention to improvements of Blazor.
Yeah.
And in this particular release, also to metrics API and also to debugging, because recently creator of Newtonsoft library, which works currently on Microsoft on ASP.NET Core team, he made a bunch of contribution across .NET
James
SDK
Newton
and
King.
ASP.NET Core. Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to improve debugging improvements, because a lot of ASP.NET Core related types didn't have any debugger display attributes, so you'll see like weird info if you try to hover over such objects. Now you see much more useful, much more handy
for example,
information.
like it is right now in .NET 7, so it's like really hard to understand what's going on when you just take a look at what is that? It is probably HTTP context, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Here,
Yes, it is HTTP context.
Okay. Yeah. Now you need to expand these 3 items and see what's inside, count, and so on. But now you see more useful info at the start. Blazor and a lot of improvements, small improvements, but still
that
valuable.
makes, I mean, all these improvements really make Blazor more applicable for real life scenarios, for real life applications. Like, I mean, the way how you can create applications nowadays with Blazor, I really like it, and it becomes better and better with each release.
Yeah, it's hard to follow all the updates made to Blazor
So
because there are a lot of them. All of them are small, but
yeah, well, what I really like is this one specify component render mode at a call site. So, for example, you can create a component, and you have, like, let's say you have server-side rendered Blazor application, but you wanted to have some interactivity for a particular component, and you can make this component. So, well, in this example, they showed server, but you can WebAssembly. You can put WebAssembly mode, and this component will start rendering in your browser, not on the server side. Well, there is a pre-rendering still, as far as I understand, but there will be some interactivity.
Yeah, it seems like in .NET 8, Blazor team tries to compete with React team because React made a full circle to the beginning and server-side rendering and mixed rendering. So
templates improvements, yeah, and also what I also liked is this enhanced page navigation and form handling. So now, in this, even if you are in a server-side mode for your Blazor app, you still can. There will be no full reload of the page when you do the navigation if you do everything correctly. So Blazor will try to intercept all your link clicks, and instead of full reload, it will just reload a part of the page, which is probably a better, smooth experience for the user.
Yeah, I have some notes here because the development process in Blazor, it is, by my experience, completely different experience in comparison, for example, with React, especially with React. It has some, some ideas, right? The components approach, CSS and separate files and so on, but under the hood is completely different things.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't have a lot of tooling and instruments to feel super comfortable with this stuff, especially, for example, with state management. If you want to think about state management in your Blazor application, you have to come up with your, with your own solution. There is no any special libraries for it.
Yeah. Well, I have here some arguments. So you really need these state management scenarios when you are going to create something really big. If you are doing like a small application, you probably can survive without it, right? And I'm not sure that we are in the position when we could promote Blazor as a framework for really large, crucial for the business applications. I think it's just not enough mature. For something small, like small admin applications that can do some crude operations like database reads, updates, or something smaller, like really small, that could be handled by a couple of person. I think that's for
Yeah.
now. That's a good tool, really good tool, because it's really rapid, so you can do really fast development with Blazor.
Yes, it is. It's very good fit for something small. But if you want to create something small but really reactive, you want to have on your page a lot of, I don't know, metrics, graphics, charts, which is updating all the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It will be not super convenient to
Probably
create.
you may have some troubles at some point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what else here? Metrics. Yeah.
Yeah, metrics and the stability of metrics. A bunch of new counters introduced into SPNet Core, and complex form binding in minimal API. Yeah, they continue to improve minimal API to make it in pair with controllers. Third release in a row.
Yeah.
It's still not there, but
well, I
let's
mean,
hope.
they are investing so much into this minimal APIs because they wanted to bring AOT compilation to ASP.NET Core, but MVC is completely incompatible
Yeah.
with IoT because of its reflection nature. While
Yeah,
minimal APIs, yeah.
At this point, controllers related stuff is like in maintenance mode. They don't introduce any significant changes here, and they work primarily on minimal APIs and stuff around it, like source generators,
Yeah.
improvements of usability, testability, and so on.
Yeah, you know, this is like a very Node.js like experience. I mean, this minimal API code looks like at least like that. Right. So in this release, Microsoft also announced 3 new C# 12 features. Name of, inline arrays, interceptor. So actually, I've prepared a small demo. Let's quickly take a look, not only on these 3 features, but let's go through all the features that were announced for C# 12, which will be released together with .NET 8. Yeah, so this numbers really makes me mad. Okay, let's do one by one. Primary constructors. This is something that they announced some time ago in one of the first previews. So primary constructors allows you to declare a constructor right near the class or struct declaration by adding this. Like it's close to what we had in records, but now this is not records. It's primary constructors. It's different now. So when you do this inside your class or struct, you will have the access to this variables or parameters. They call these parameters like they are fields in your class. For example, you can use these parameters to assign some properties, to do some properties with calculated logic, or even to use them in your methods like they are just regular fields. And if you have another constructor, not a primary constructor, you will have to call explicitly the primary constructor with passing appropriate default arguments. So really opinionated feature, but probably for some like quick class prototyping, I mean, these primary constructors may be a very good fit. So the next one, I think this is not
Question, wait a second.
Yeah.
What is the access level of these arguments in the primary constructor? Will it create the private fields in the class as it does?
I think so. I think so. I think we can, so I'm not going to do that right now, but we can do some sharplap investigation and see what is the generated code at the end. I think it's just
it's private
field.
should be private.
Okay.
Yeah. Aliases, I really like this feature and really surprised that it arrived only now. It makes much more useful such types as tuples. When tuples were introduced, I was like a real fan of them, but seems like nobody want to use them right now. But so because of their like verbosity, yeah, in order to declare a tuple, you need to write a lot of things, especially if you want to just return a tuple. So now, for example, you can do, of course, you can rename a string or any other type in order to avoid some typing mismatches. But you can also use this really well with tuples. For example, take a look how I just declared a tuple point. Yeah, I just put using tuple point equal to, and then I just showed the shape of the tuple, especially when your tuple is like a little more complicated, like here when you have tasks and so on. I mean, this is really nice feature for in a combination with tuples. And then, for example, yes, so just take a look how I nicely declared a point, and I can like even return.
Just to make it clear, aliases were there for a long time, but in this release they introduced aliases for complex types, like a type tuples.
Yeah,
and
so
they are visible only here on this namespace on this page. It is not public visible, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there would be even no such type. It's just alias. It's not a real type, right?
Yeah, right, correct. I mean, in the email, if you open, another file, CS file, it means that you're not able to, to get this alias.
Yeah. But really nice feature, especially for tuples. The next one, lambda defaults. So now when you declare your lambda, you can assign a default value to it. So just take a look how I declared this lambda. So actually, if you are not aware, you can also declare a returning type. Then you have these brackets, and you can, let's say you created a lambda that is doing some operation, and you can initialize these arguments with default values, and then you can pass one parameter or 0 parameters. And interesting that when you do this lambda declaration, this code doesn't work. So you are not able to pass like y
to use
equal
named
to 10.
parameters.
You have to use arg2, because if you take a look at what is generated by the compiler, it's arg1 and arg2 arguments, while here they are x and y.
Looks like a bug for me.
Probably made, but yeah,
maybe
agree. That's not something that I expected, to be honest. Well, probably they will improve. Inline arrays. So this is a recent feature that was just announced, and it is like a very performance optimization thing. So this is not something that you probably will use in your code. It actually allows you to declare a struct and mark it with inline attribute and put here a number. And that means this, when you create an instance of this type, like here buffer, it will allocate this instance on stack, and it will be just an array on stack. So you will be able to go through its like fields, assign like the values. And by the way, if you try to like I just put a comment here, exceed the range. So here I declared that its size is 10. If you try to exceed, you will get out of range exception. And also you can declare only one field. So you can do this like for ints, or you can just for longs. So only one field is allowed for this inline arrays feature. So again, this is something that probably will be used intensively for performance optimization scenarios. Right, name of operator is going to be improved, so you will be able to use it in more scenarios. And for example, if you have like a property, you will be able to get name of one of its properties, like I did here for a static field, or like, yeah, for static field, it's also possible, or for instance field, and even for a parameters, right? So you may have a method with a parameter, and you can access it through the name of, and you can check its property name. So it's just more scenarios for name of attribute keyword. The last one is interceptors. This is very opinionated feature, and there is a lot of discussion regarding it in the community, why this feature looks so ugly. The main scenario of interceptors, again, it's addressing IoT issues, something that they are not able to address with source generators. Why source generators can't address all the scenarios? The question to you, Alexander, and to you, Vladimir. Do you know the main
because
problem?
source generators kicks in only during compilation, and they
Yes.
have read-only access to your
exactly,
compilation
read-only.
unit.
So they can't change your code. So you can just only add the code with source generators. You cannot change the existing code, while interceptors can do that. For example, let's take a look at this code. So let's say I have interceptable method, which is just the name. Yeah, it's an interceptable method. I decided to name it like that with one parameter. It just prints interceptable original method, and also it puts a parameter value. And now with this interceptors feature, that probably will go, probably will not, because Microsoft may decide to postpone or change this feature. You can do the following. You can somewhere declare the method with almost same signature, but with the first parameter, which will be this, and then class name, and then the parameter for this class name, because you will need this, because you're going to intercept. And then you should mark your method with very ugly intercept location attribute. So by the way, in order to make this feature working, you have to do a few things. First of all, you need to enable preview language of your of C# features. Then you need to explicitly enable interceptors preview, and that's not enough. You will have to declare system runtime compiler services. In system runtime compiler services attribute, you have to declare intercepts location attribute with this signature, and only after that, you will be able to mark your methods, and then you have to pass full pass to the file, to the line, and to the column of what you are going to intercept. So, for example, I wanted to intercept this line, so I passed here full pass to the file, line 12 and column 11. Yeah, right. Let's check that it's 11. Yes. Here you can take a look and see that it's 11th column. And now I can like replace the full call of this method with my own logic. For example, instead of interceptable original, I'll put interceptor, and I'll do the same for line 13th. It will be another interceptor. So, and here in the program CS, I just called this, and let's take a look at what will be printed.
This thing that you have to provide a line and column is something weird.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I forgot that I'm not sharing my screen. So there will be actually, let me copy paste what was just printed. So actually, the following was printed in my console. So it was printed interceptor original, then interceptor 2, another interceptor 3. So that what I've just copy pasted from the console. So looks like they are working, but the shape of this feature is very opinionated. There is a lot of discussion about it.
As far as I know, they decided to keep it in preview for .NET 8 release because of the how it's ugly, how it's was treated across community and how fast it was implemented. It's for me, it looks like a dirty hack just to make it work somehow. It reminds me of the initial design of source generators. It was also very ugly and dirty.
Agree. And by the way, you can take a look at the all the proposed features to C# in the .NET C# Lang repository, right? So you will see here all the all the proposals with some examples.
Collection expressions is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's
okay, so
features taken from TypeScript world.
Okay, we have few other news and updates.
Yeah, it is about tooling, right?
Yeah.
And the first one is that we have a kind of working variant of preview for Visual Studio Code for Avalonia. It is not first attempt to implement it. There was one a long time ago, but it was not super successful, right? But this one is completely new. It is implemented in a very, very different way, and it's still in the beta, but it works. It is possible to try it. You have to connect to the beta channel of Visual Studio, and you can install this extension if you are developing Avalonia here in the Visual Studio Code, for example, in the Mac or in the Linux. It will be super helpful for you because it supports all the feature which it supports in the usual preview from Visual Studio Hot Reload, syntax highlight, and so on and so on.
Really cool to see it. Such a great community efforts.
Yeah, community
really
is
cool.
growing. Really, people like it. The second thing, it is enhancement in debugging for Visual Studio for the big.
It's for Visual Studio Code, right? Code, and the previous
correct.
one also the code. Yeah.
Yes. It is about debugging in the .NET containers. So previously, the Visual Studio Code provided us just ability to create a scaffold for containers files, right? Now it is this feature enhancement because and you are able to not just create a scaffold, just a scratch for your just a foundation for your containers. You are able to run it and put the breakpoints and debug directly inside the containers.
Yeah.
Super nice feature, and especially if you are working with Visual Studio Code. Sorry.
Yeah. So really nice to see that Visual Studio Code becomes more and more mature. So
yeah,
this one, too many
this
tabs.
one, too many tabs. Another way to manage your tabs in the Visual Studio. It is for big Visual Studio, and I kind of agree with this stuff because it allows you to keep your working space more clean. What it does, if you set it up your tabs to be in multiple rows, and when you enable this new feature, when you scroll down, all the rows will be collapsed into one, and you'll see kind of clearest view of your working area, of your working screen. I know I didn't try it because I don't know, to try it you have to have a preview version of Visual Studio, but I a bit doubt about this functionality because probably you will see your working area editor flipping a lot of times during work.
So by the way, there is another really nice feature which is vertical tabs. This is something that I am using personally.
That's cool. Yeah.
So that's why I didn't have this problem for a long time since I started switching to vertical tabs.
Yeah, that's right. But as a variant, why not?
Yeah.
Need to try it.
Agree.
The last thing that I want to mention is about debugging again for big Visual Studio 22. It is debugging parallel stack. I do not have a lot of experience with this tooling, how it now working and worked before, but based on this images, this video that they provided, it looks very nice. It means they can visually understand the
exactly.
branches of your code. Execution is switched between them, have breakpoints and so on. Filtering between execution points.
I mean, the interesting thing about Visual Studio that it's huge application, and there are a lot of different windows, different tools that probably didn't know that they exist.
Yeah, from time to time, it is surprising.
Yeah, and the last one, so now you can subscribe to Microsoft news and updates with your email, and you will receive some updates in your mailbox. Well, probably for those guys who wanted to read
Hello
instead
from
of-
Nancy's.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's cool. That's cool.
They will be spamming you every 5 minutes.
Yeah,
To
they
become
will
the
try
new
to
feature.
offer some things from Microsoft to buy the Azure, their laptops, whatever. Okay. That's it for today. That's it. I think that was cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Wish you good luck and a good rest of your day. Hope it was interesting for you. See you next time.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Okay, we
Bye-bye.
hold on. guys.
What
We have
happened?
two hands raised. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we have few hands. Guys, who has just raised the hand?
I
Sorry.
don't know.
I suppose it was the MS Click just to wave you goodbye.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
User
then
experience in Teams.
goodbye one more time.
Okay, bye.
Sorry.
Bye.
Bye.